Everybody, Module 4 discussion. Discuss how communication works within an organization, explain upward, downward, and lateral communication, and discuss the role of silence. So communication within an organization is the messages that get sent around. You have somebody in the company that sends messages, other people that receive them. These questions, from what I can tell, relate to formal networks. For this question number 1 is about the formal networks discussed on page 119 in the book. Messages that move inside the organization in a formal network move across the established, across the structure through the chain of command, upward and downward or laterally, based on the policies of the organization. So upward communication are those that go from the bottom level, from the employees at the working level, up through the management to the leaders of the organization. This might be something like the completion of a task, maybe issues with a coworker. If me and somebody on the same level had an issue going on, we might talk to our direct manager, or if we had issues with our manager, we might talk to his boss. Or maybe like a procedural thing, filling out a report about a vehicle accident or some type of an incident report would be another thing that would be considered an upward communication. Downward communications are those that come from the top, from the leadership or the managers, and go down to the employees at the working level. This might include like memos about a policy change in the company, might be instructions or procedural information that's passed down to the employees about how to do their jobs. It also could be feedback information, among other things, from the manager or higher level management about projects that were done well, or some more, even critical information about how they could do better with their job, some feedback information. Lateral communication is cross-department messages that skip the chain of command. One way that I think about this is like an HR department isn't really part of my direct chain of command, but there's a procedure in place where I might go as an employee and talk to the HR department and kind of skip the chain of command because it's something that's specifically for the HR department in a procedural way. Or if a company had 2 departments that needed to talk just for more quickly handling problems or whatnot, they might have something like the failed bridge is talked about on page 131, where we need to speed things up between departments and the employees can talk to each other and maybe let the bosses know about it, or they just expect it as part of the everyday operations. And so even it's not necessary even to communicate that information to the bosses. And if they did, it might slow things down for the decision making to happen. So a personal example of this, one time I had a situation happen where I had made a mistake on a project. I was at the calculating phase of a construction project, establishing information for the field crews to go lay out in the field as a surveyor. So I found my error and I redid the information, and I knew the crew was going to be on the ground. So I called one of my coworkers directly and was like, "Hey, this information's bad. Here's the new information," and just told them the different information over the phone. They had already done some of that work, so they had to take a little extra time, redo some of the work due to my error. And so it took them a little longer that day. They didn't get as much done as the manager had expected. My mistake was that I didn't follow the chain of command. I didn't tell the manager about it. So he was a little frustrated with the crew for taking so long, and the crew explained, well, we had to redo this work because, of the mistake that was made. So I ended up getting into trouble for this incident because I didn't follow the correct chain of command. So that's an example from my own experience where that was definitely a bad thing. Even though I was thinking it would be faster if I just dealt with it myself, I really needed to follow the chain of command so that the boss knew how this would affect the budget and the schedule for the project. So important factors. Employee silence is talked about on page 125. It can be for a number of different reasons, due to not feeling that they make a difference when they talk, or fear of risking their job if they speak out. It's described as, employee silence, if it's occurring, is usually accompanied by feelings of the company being unjust and not very committed to their employees, and in turn the employees don't feel that committed to their companies. So employee silence is a big indicator that there's some underlying issues going on that really need addressed and dealt with. Question number 2, what are communication networks? What is the difference between formal and informal networks and how do they work? Why are they important? And explain specifically what a grapevine is, how it works. So a formal network, we've already talked about, it follows the company structure. It's based on procedures within the company. Informal networks are when people just tell other individuals in the company. So instead of, as an employee, me talking to my boss and it going up from his boss to the guy above him, I might talk to somebody over in accounting and tell him some piece of news, and he might tell somebody over in HR, and then they might tell some other, field workers or whatever. The grapevine is more of a gossip line. It's people sharing information with each other based on relationships that they have with those individuals. They may be friends, or they see each other passing in the hallway, or somebody's hanging out at the water cooler. Another term for the grapevine is the water cooler line. So information gets shared randomly just based on the interpersonal relationships. They can be good because they pass information very quickly. They also help provide a sense of belonging and connection with other people within the organization. The bad things is that they can miss people if those individuals are not very well connected with the rest of the groups that are handling the information. And one of the bigger problems with it is messages can get twisted or changed as part of moving through this random bunch of people all sharing information. I've actually had this happen in one job that I can recall. There was a time back in 2008 during the recession, my company was dealing with some stuff. There were some pay cuts that were going to happen across the board. Everybody was getting a percentage cut in pay instead of laying people off. Well, the bookkeeper was talking with the owner and got word of this, and she kind of jumped ahead of him a little bit, shared the information with an employee who told a couple other employees, and somebody told me. And by the time the message got to me, when instead of pay cuts, we heard employees getting cut, and so we were all worried about who was on the chopping block that week. So the information wasn't any good because it went through too many people. The message got distorted and changed as it changed hands. So that type of grapevining can cause issues in bad information. Number 3, using a specific bad example from your own experience, discuss how to improve both horizontal and lateral communication within an organization. So for the same company,